Hello, everyone. We're just going to give it a few more minutes, see if people are still signing in. So please hold on. We'll be right back. Hello, everyone. Once again, this is Armağan Yavuz. We're going to have the New York Summer Outlook for 2015. I'm a NYISO analyst. I'm also here with Patrick Higgins. He's a meteorologist for NYISO. He will present the slides about weather and demand. In the meantime, during this presentation, if you have any questions, please type them up. We will answer at the end of the presentation. And if we can't get it to you right away, we will get in touch with you personally. And also in the left, you'll see presentation slides. If you click on it, you can actually download the slides. We will also email them to you and this recording after the presentation. And also, as you may have noticed, there's a survey on the left. Feel free to take it, please. We strongly encourage and appreciate your comments and feedback. So in today's agenda, we're going to look back at last summer just to have an idea of what to expect, what the summers look like in NYISO. And then we will share with you our expectations for this coming summer. Especially generation and congestion looks like there are going to be some changes. And then we will finish with a quick summary. So I would like to hand it over to Patrick to take us through weather and demand.
All right. Yeah, just to get going, we're for the slide to load here. Yeah, looking at this summer, we're expecting it to be slightly warmer than normal. That's mostly in the north and west, as you'll see. There we go. So yeah, we're expecting some warm anomalies in the north and west. It looks like there's going to be a nice pool of warm air in the Midwest, and that's going to kind of drag into New York State. As far as New York City goes, we're expecting it to be about seasonal, but at the same time, that's going to be warmer than last year because we never really saw that sustained heat make it into the city. As far as what the drivers of the forecasts are, the main one that I think everyone's looking at is El Nino. So that's a pool of warm water in the Central Pacific. And then also the big one that's really going to swing the forecast is we're expecting the ridge in the Northern Pacific, which is caused by warm waters over there. We're expecting that to regress as the season goes on. So if that doesn't happen, there are some cooler risks. but we're expecting it to break down and give us those warm anomalies. So heading into the monthly breakdown, we're expecting June to basically look like the anomaly map that we have for this summer as a whole. We're expecting seasonal conditions for New York City and then slightly warmer than normal in like Zone A and in the north. As far as our projected peak for the month, we're going with 29.4 gigawatts. And then heading into July, that's when we really started to see things warm up. We have warmer than normal conditions for the entire state, especially that north and west area as well. And we see our peak actually come in at 32 gigawatts, which is, I think, about 3 gigawatts higher than we saw last year. And last year, we didn't even see our peak for the year come in during meteorological summer. We saw it come in September, so we're definitely expecting it to be a lot different than last summer. And then heading into August, we start to see some cool anomalies creep in from New England, but overall, the state as a whole, we're expecting it to be seasonal, another 29 gigawatt peak for the month. So just delving a little further into why we're expecting that peak to be a lot higher than last summer. As you can see here, this map shows the departure from normal temperature for last summer. And you can see that basically the entire state was cooler than normal, and the biggest factor was we never got any sustained heat. So New York City only hit 90 degrees twice, and we never actually got above 90. We only got to 90 degrees, and those weren't even in a row. So we never saw that building cooling load day over day until just the first week of September when we got our peak for the season. So yeah, we're expecting temperatures to be slightly higher than last year, but we're definitely expecting it to be more sustained heat. And just looking a little further into basically peak demand and how temperatures correlate towards that. So from 2011 to 2013, our peak for the summer ranged from 32.4 to 33.9 gigawatts. And then we came in, we saw last year 29.3 on July 1st, 29.8 on September 2nd. So as I said before, why is that so low? No sustained heat, never really got above 90, and only got above 85 degrees for a few multiple days. So although we're only seeing those seasonal conditions for New York City, we're still expecting it to be a lot warmer than last year. So just moving on to the last slide here. Just a little quick breakdown on TSA risk. Taking a look at what we saw last August, that's actually pretty similar conditions to what we're expecting for the summer as a whole. We're seeing drier than normal conditions, especially in the eastern half of the state, so that covers that corridor between Albany and New York City. So breaking down TSA last summer, we saw 14 hours of TSA alert status in June, 30 hours in July, and only 10 hours in August. So if we get what we're thinking, it's going to be pretty similar to August, and we're not going to see too many TSA alerts. So just closing up there, pass it back to Armand. He'll cover more into the summer look back.
Thank you, Patrick. So taking over here, this is a slide about last 4 years summer, June, July, and August, Zone A and Zone G, the head market prices. We just put it here to give you an idea of what to expect prices to come in, what the trend is. Looks like last year in June, we were more expensive, mostly because there were line outages in June last year that drove congestion. And also demand in June was actually, even though the summer on average was lower, the clear demand in June was actually pretty comparable. So you can see the prices in June were higher or at average or very similar to 2013 summer, but then July and August were a little bit less than that. And then in the next slide, we will look at demand that cleared. Still waiting. Okay. So we see the very similar trend to prices in June. Clear demand were pretty similar to 2013, but then July and August it went down again. Looking at gas prices in the summer in NYISO, it does not actually play the biggest role because in the summertime our gas is not as expensive as in the winter. Z2 gas prices last year were a little bit above average, but Z6 was lower. This summer, we are not expecting any major changes. We are expecting there's a maintenance going on Algonquin gas pipeline this summer. We don't think it will be a significant driver of prices, either gas or I don't think it's going to impact New York as much, but it's good to know. We will keep an eye out on it. But overall, our gas prices are expected to come in cheap. Okay, we're going to start the summer outlook now. Just waiting for the slides to load. Okay, we're going to start with our generation analysis. I know the slide can be a little bit full of wording, but to summarize it for you, basically, we are not expecting any generation outages this summer, at least nothing major that's worth talking about. But we have a lot of very important generation additions, mostly Bowline and Danskammer, both in Zone G. And the reason those two entered the supply stack this summer is because last September, NYISO published an RNA, reliability needs assessment, and they basically said, come 2019, we are going to have a lot of constraints in the New York City area. We just don't have enough generation in that area. So they were trying to find a solution to that. They came up with a new capacity zone in Zone G that would give all the generation in Zone G a lot of incentive. So that brought back Bowline and Danskammer eventually. And then following that, in November of last year, NYISO published this time withdrawing that request that they have about 1,900 megawatts of generation now, and they no longer need any proposals because this will cover the base. Other than Bowline and Danskammer, we have Astoria Unit 20 in Zone J that's also going to help, and we have some wind and coal units in Zones A and C that will definitely help. So overall, that looks bearish in terms of generation. Danskammer, they published, but when they requested NYISO to that they're going to enter the supply stack this summer, they said they would be ready by end of 2014. We have seen it in Genscape's Power RT that on May 12th, Danskammer actually ramped up in real time. It looks like they went up to about 200 megawatts. Looks like this was a real-time only drive because real-time prices in Zone G was about $35 cheaper than they had. So this kind of gives us an idea of how big of a driver Danskammer can be, and Bowline also. Now, this is usually what we see in the past summers. This is a New York map, and we see zones G through K become expensive, and the rest of the state is fairly cheap, and that's because power is flowing from north to east, and that's driving a lot of congestion there. And the main reason for that is we have those. This is just a transmission map of zone G, just zoomed in there. You see the two red lines. There are 345 kV lines. On the left is leads to Hurley Avenue, and on the right is Athens to Pleasant Valley. So basically, if those lines are carrying a lot of power, they either hit their thermal limits or there's just a reliability issue that New York City is so dependent of northern generation. So NYISO binds one of those lines, and that's how we get that congestion. And when this happens, as you clearly see in the map, the southern New York receives upside and north receives downside. And the reason I'm showing this is because Bowline and Danskammer are in the southern part of that line. So basically, whenever that congestion happens, the impact is going to be less because now Bowline and Danskammer can ramp up, so that congestion pattern is going to not going to be as strong following the return of Bowline and Danskammer. Now, I just want to speak to the primary impacts of Bowline and Danskammer. A couple of them. First of all, as I mentioned, congestion. Now, the main driver of this congestion that you see in the map was because there is not enough generation in Zone J. But now there is, so we will see less of this congestion. And also, this congestion is the same as it happens in real time whenever there's a thunderstorm alert. So basically, same theory applies here. Now that we have a healthy supply stack in New York City area, thunderstorm alerts are not going to be as significant in terms of dart spreads because real time is not going to be as expensive because now there's a lot more generation in there that can drive prices down. And the tricky one that a lot of people ask about me is what do I think is going to do to GJ spread? I mean, technically, it looks like, there's a lot of generation now in zone G. It's going to go to zone J. Is that going to drive any congestion over the lines, especially hitting thermal limits between zone G and J? In my opinion, it's not really going to impact GJ spread too much. I think it will either remain flat or increase a little bit, but I don't think the impact will be significant because those generators, as I said, are very close to zone J. So I just think that they're both going to go up or down together. And the fourth one is, how is this going to impact Central East congestion? Now you can see a little map in the right bottom. So basically that's what happens when Central East binds. Instead of flows going directly from north to south, like in the left, sometimes flows can be very strong from west to east. And that will drive Central East congestion. And the logic behind it is very similar. There's just not enough generation in the east, or there's a lot of exports going into New England, and that will drive Central East congestion. And that Central East congestion sends downside or curtail price signal to zone A. So that will drive, that has been driving wide AEG spreads. But now that we have, again, that healthy supply stack in zone G, I think we're going to see less of Central East congestion. So that means zone A is not going to receive as much of a curtail signal as they have been. So that is the return or addition of these generators are a bullish price driver for zone A. Now the fifth one is New England flows. Whenever there's a Central East congestion that kind of goes hand in hand with it, if it is very strong Central East congestion, NYISO tries to cut flows from NYISO to New England because now all of those flows are needed in NYISO. But now that we have that healthy generation, Eastern New York does not have to worry too much about sending flows to New England and congesting up New York. So that was our analysis for generation. I'm going to now speak about the line outages and transmission derates that I see that NYISO has scheduled. Now, first of all, this is not the full list of all the outages or transmission derates that has been scheduled. In my experience, NYISO does not publish a very detailed outage list this far ahead of time, but they will publish, I'm sure, as we get closer, maybe a couple of days ahead or a week ahead, we will see when the important outages or derates show up. But the reason that I picked those and the reason I want to share these with you is not because they're very significant, especially if you look at the date in and date out. Some of them are only like 1 day long, but those are the ones that I think are going to show up this summer more often, and it's good to have an idea of what it can do. Now, for example, the top one is basically saying that HQ imports, that limit is now decreasing from 1,500 megawatts to 1,100 megawatts. We are very dependent on HQ imports in the summer because HQ Hydro-Quebec, Canada does not get impacted very much by the summer heat. So they can maintain their cheap power prices, and they can very stable market they can send into New York. So if we see HQ imports go down, that will definitely increase prices at Marcy as reference price. So entire state is going to go up, and Zone A definitely is going to have some congestion because of that. And the one underneath, there's a Dysinger East derate about 300 megawatts. Now, if we see that more often, especially when we have, let's assume that we have a strong Central East congestion, if we have a Dysinger East interface derate on top of it, we will see downside in Zone A because, only so many flows now can go over Dysinger East. So that will be a downside driver for Zone A that we will always keep an eye out for. And then there are back to Niagara line outages that drive IMO imports down. Again, that's very important because IMO imports play a big role in driving or avoiding Zone A congestion. There's a sweet spot if IMO is flowing from Ontario, from Ontario, Canada into Buffalo area. If they're very strong or very weak, we see Zone A congestion. So now that the limit is 1100 megawatts, I think even though we are going to have less imports from Canada, that will actually be a bearish driver for Zone A. If there's Zone A congestion, I would think that it's going to go down. And then the last one is Central East Derate. Once again, the dates are not very long, but I'm sure we will see more of this. Central East can be very important. If there are less flows that can go over Central East, that can create AG spreads, and that can really impact exports going into New England. And then as far as the line outages, basically if there are any line outages in Zone A near Niagara or Beck or Packard Gardenville, they can really increase Zone A congestion. And even if it doesn't bind, it will bring price volatility. And the reason I have the top one in there, from Genscape to Chadwick, it looks like, I actually don't have experience with that line, but I just wanted to share with you that sometimes there are some line outages that go out that are very close to some generation that can limit that generation to ramp up at all or run it not at capacity. So this line outage may impact the Genscape unit to not run at full capacity. We will just see how this happens, but I just want to share my thoughts with you. We have the same scenario with bowl line. If there's a line outage near bowl line unit, normally bowl line cannot run. So it may be a good idea to keep an eye out on this one, especially if Genscape is running during that time. Now, I would like to talk about Zone A congestion. People who are really interested in Zone A, they trade Zone A. They have a very good understanding of this. But I just wanted to take a step back and point out the usual suspects, usual main drivers of Zone A congestion, basically, and then explain a couple theories that I have that may be driving Zone A congestion on top of that. So basically, if there are line outages or transformer outages near Niagara, that will drive Zone A congestion. If you have low PJM or high IMO imports, that will drive Zone A congestion. Strong load like everywhere else. But overall, if we have weak power on 230 kV, and weak supply, and we have strong 345 kV supply, that can also contribute to Zone A congestion. But the reason I have Zone A congestion slide for you is because I just want to share something else, not the usuals. It looks like Huntley can step in and out of the market, and they can really drive Zone A congestion and Zone A prices eventually in a pretty significant way. If you look at Dyson East flows, that will really increase or decrease, and I will dive into it in the next slide, but I just want to point out that Huntley can come in and out, and if there is a Zone A congestion that's really confusing, hard to explain, this would be one thing that I will look at. So basically, put in a very simple way, this is again Zone A map, basically western side of NYISO. We have Dyson East interface right there in red, and that basically measures the sum of flows that are coming from west to east. And on the west, we have basically the biggest thing that makes up the Dyson East interface is IMO imports, zonal generation like Dunkirk and Huntley, Somerset. And then we also have Homer City to Solar Road coming from PJM, partial PJM AC flows, and obviously there's load that has to be served. If everything remained the same day over day, Dyson East flows would be the same. Or if IMO flows were the only thing that increased, then Dyson East flows, I would expect them to increase a little bit. But sometimes what we see is like May 31st and 30th data you have in the bottom. Dyson East flows day over day went from 1678 megawatts to 974 megawatts. That's a very big decrease over the interface. And I wanted to look at what would be driving that. Is it the IMO imports or is it the demand going down? But it looks like everything here is public information except for zonal generation. We don't know what they're doing. Looks like Zone A load was the same. IMO imports did go down about 200 megawatts, but not big enough decrease. And PJM imports actually went up. So in this case, I would expect Dyson East flows to either remain the same or maybe even go up a little bit. But as you can see, it went down 700 megawatts, and that only leaves me with some clue that generation in Zone A has exited the supply stack. Well, why is this important? Because if you look at it, Zone A marginal cost of congestion was only $3 on May 30th, but it was $33 on May 31st, and that was certainly a very, very big driver. And we actually saw that in today's day-ahead market, Zone A has cleared pretty strong, and it was a very similar situation. The Derates East flows in today's day-ahead clear was there was a big decrease compared to yesterday, and I would expect the same thing is happening here. So historical data shows that it normally takes only a couple of days for those Derates flows to recover. So it will not be a long-term congestion, in my opinion. And also, I have looked back 4 or 5 years, and this was the only time, May 31st, that this has happened in the summertime. It normally happens in the winter. So I don't think this actually is a big risk for this summer to happen. And obviously today it happened. But I don't think this is a big risk for the summertime. By next week, I think Derates flows are going to recover. And by the way, I can imagine people would like to know how tomorrow's day-ahead market cleared. There was still some Zone A congestion tomorrow, but doing my analysis that I do here, it looks like Derates flows actually increased. So it's on its way back. It's just still there's congestion. It's not back just enough yet. And now we'd like to talk about tide flows. So this is historical data. I could have probably mentioned this earlier on in my presentation, but this is also how we figure out or how we try to have a clue about this summer's tide flows. So Hydro-Quebec and Ontario flows, IMO flows, are up top. You can see last 2 years, they didn't actually change that much in the summer. They only have data, I'm only showing data here June, July, and August of last year's. You can see, it's very stable over there. It's not a very summer-driven market. In the winters, Canada gets really cold, and that's when they have problems. But in the summer, we don't really have to worry about that. So I think this summer, similar situation, I would expect strong and steady flows from both HQ and IMO. But once you come down to New England and PJM flows, it gets a little bit trickier. Market economics and generator incentive play a bigger role. Demand changes a lot more, and generation has to react to it. So it's more dynamic over there. And taking a look at New England, for example, in 2013, we did not send them that much. We actually imported, it looks like in August. But then last year, we did export quite a few. And looks like it's all market economics based on, 2013 was a pretty hot year for NYISO. So there was a lot of Central East congestion and not a lot of flows going in to New England. But last summer, we did not have that problem. And same story goes for PJM. We were cold, we were able to, we were hot in the summer in 2013, able to import from PJM. But in 2014, that was not the case. But in PJM this summer, I would expect flows, imports to come in, not as much as they did in 2013, but pretty close to that, but definitely more than 2014. And also, I would like to mention for the New England exports, because now that we have healthier generation stack, dance camera, and ball line, we will probably export more to New England now. So I wanted to put all the 5 of the biggest price driving factors in one slide for you. So it looks like load is going to be bullish, as Patrick has mentioned. Generation is very bearish, but only in zones G, J, and K. It may end up being bullish for zone A because Central East congestion, as we have mentioned, may not bind, so zone A may not receive downside. So year over year, it can go up. Transmission line-wise, I did mention how many lines and DUS you are expecting, how many are scheduled, but nothing is there big enough for me to say year over year it will make a difference. But as I also mentioned, we will keep an eye out on it. They publish that data pretty day in and day out. Now, gas market-wise, I have a slightly bullish there. I don't think it's going to be a big driver, given we have a lot bigger drivers this summer in terms of generation and load. But there's a Stony Point compressor station maintenance that's going to impact AGT gas capacity. It's going down slightly, but I don't think it will impact NYISO that much. Even ISO New England is, I don't think will be impacted that much. AGT is their main gas. But it has to be New England's problem first before it can be NYISO's. Not expecting a major driver, but still slightly bullish. And import-wise, it could be bullish for eastern side of New York because now we're sending more to New England. Now that we can afford it, we have enough generation. But I don't think we'll see any of that impact Zone A that much. So that actually concludes it. If you have any questions, I will remain online. I will read your questions. I will answer to them, and so everybody can hear it. But if you don't have any questions and are leaving, I appreciate the time that you have taken for this. And have a good day. But I will be online for a couple more minutes. Okay, having a few questions, I will take one at a time. So, I will answer one at a time. So, one of the questions was about that Dysinger East analysis. How do you know the PJM imports are only going to the west? Well, first of all, let me try to open that real quick. Okay, so I have the slide up. Hopefully, I'm just waiting for it to load. Okay, so basically the question is, you see Homer City to Soul Road coming to the left of Dysinger East, and you're adding that to your calculations. And how do you know the PJM AC is not flowing all the way to the right of it? Well, my answer to that is actually in this analysis, even though I am showing Homer City Soul Road coming into the western side of Dysinger East, it looks like there's like 461 megawatts increase. I have not even included that in my analysis. So basically, I am not saying that 461 megawatts were coming in extra to the west, and that should have increased Dysinger East. I'm saying even if all of that went to the east, that I would still expect in this example at least for Dysinger East to increase. And by the way, Homer City Soul Road always carry a lot of power, so I would think it's a safe bet that if it increased by about 500 megawatts, the PJM AC, I think it's a safe bet that some of it at least went to Homer City Soul Road. There's a question if overall I'm bearish for the summer. I would say yes, except for Zone A. As I mentioned, Central East can drive Zone A up a little bit, but the addition of those generation, I think, is going to outweigh the increase in demand. So I would agree that I am overall bearish in zones G, J, and K. In terms of gas, even though it does show that I'm slightly bullish, I have mentioned that I only have that because of the AGT capacity decrease, and it's not going to a big driver. So definitely generation additions is the biggest driver for me to say that I'm bearish this summer. Question is, what are normal, or I guess average, Dyson East flows? They do change a lot. So, I mean, yeah, they change a lot, so I wouldn't be able to answer to that question. But the thing is, if everything is flat day over day, I mean, that's what I was trying to show with this slide. If everything is flat day over day and only the Dyson East is going down quite a few megawatts, then that could be that could give you a clue that Huntley may have stepped out. But if Dyson East, for example, decreased day over day by 700 megawatts, but then IMO imports also decreased by a lot, and PJM imports decreased a lot, and load went down a lot, then that's not a red flag per se. That's just when everything else is flat and Dyson East decreases. So it doesn't really matter at what level it is decreasing from. But what matters is how it is decreasing, and it needs to be that zonal generation is the driver of that decrease. Another question is, so basically now that we have strong generation in the New York City area, wouldn't that be bearish Zone A, because now Zone A is going to, I guess the question is, generate less? Well, I think in my opinion, even though dense camber and ball line are very, very helpful additions in order to meet that load pocket, New York City and Long Island, I think it is still very important to have Zone A generation. So I think flows from Zone A are still going to come in, and I think we are still going to see some Central East congestion. But overall, I don't think it will be the case that Zone A generation just does not need to run anymore because now Zone G has enough generation. I think it's just going to be a decrease of flows, and that will cause weaker Central East congestion. So that could bring prices up in Zone A. That will conclude all the answers that I have. If you have asked a question and haven't heard, I will get back to you personally. Thank you for joining us today, and please take the time to do the survey. As I mentioned, we really appreciate your feedback. Bye-bye.